This is Deborah Johnson for Women at Halftime, and I'm passionate about helping women use their untapped skills, resources, and talents to create their ideal work and lifestyle, making a difference in their second half. Deborah Johnson here, and it's great to be here with you again this week, really with an important subject, I feel, for today's times, and for any time, but especially for today, is handling disappointment during times of multiple setbacks. And a lot of times we deal with one setback and maybe two, but when they start piling up, hey, it just gets tough. You just got to admit it. So before I get going, I wanted to give you a couple reminders. Our music membership is definitely up and running and going at learnmusicagain.com. And if you used to play, want to play again, especially piano, I have some voice on there as well. This is the program for you. It is easy to get on and to be very successful and start enjoying music. Music is healing. It is a place where you can go and just not only enjoy the sound, but have a wonderful time of focus and diversion that's totally away from something else. It has that healing power. So I hope you take advantage. There are plenty of free downloads on that page, learnmusicagain.com. So make sure you check it out. I only open up the cart once a quarter. We have 3 different levels. Your do-it-yourself, and you have a lot of online programs to be able to access. And then we have a VIP. That's the one I usually suggest for most people because you get another song monthly, and you'll be a part of a group where you get more interaction from me. And then I do have an exclusive level, but that's for just a very few. So anyway, check that out. So let's get to our subject. Handling disappointment during times of multiple setbacks. I've just personally had another trip change, and we didn't totally cancel it, but it just, a lot of details changed because we had new details to deal with as far as we have been in this time of dealing still with COVID-19 and all that was entailed there. It's also a political year, so I just have to remember some of these messages coming every way and from all sides, and sometimes you just don't know what to believe, and you just don't, and you've just got to realize that, at least mentally, and that helps just a little bit. So, but and we had another trip. Here you might be in the same boat. You've planned a trip maybe for a year, maybe for a year and a half, and now you're staying home. You didn't get to go on that wonderful cruise or wonderful safari or wonderful wherever you were going, and you can't get out of the country. And that's disappointing. You're not sure when it will reschedule, and really if you're able to even go to the same place. And what about the athletes? I really think about this because I am married to a former professional athlete, and you've trained so hard, and this year is your chance to shine. I mean, you finally made it to the big leagues, playing on a major team. You've worked so hard, and the baseball season is canceled. Now, you're not only handling disappointment, but you're handling like anger, as it just doesn't seem fair. It's unjust. It's unfair. You've just been robbed of these precious years of playing in your prime. You are in your prime. How long is your body going to last? I'm just feeling for those athletes right now, many that are on their last years of playing. And what about when your business finally opens and then you get the news? You have to adjust once again, closing during a holiday weekend, losing sales and valuable cash flow that had the potential of getting you through the crisis. Now, on the other side, you're handling disappointment, not knowing if you'll really ever be able to recover. Just one setback after another. And handling disappointment is something that most everyone has had to face in our current times. And multiple setbacks have escalated the feelings of desperation, fear, and loss. And there are no easy answers with a Band-Aid that'll fix those feelings. I know that. Band-Aids fix a few things. They fix those little bruises, and raising sons, I've put plenty of Band-Aids on, but these are real, and they're sometimes they just feel insurmountable. But there are 3 ways that I'm going to cover here that will help in handling disappointment emotionally. And I feel like those are very, very important to bring up right now, because they are principles that I am personally applying. I am pretty upbeat and pretty positive. It's just the way I look at life. I look at it half full instead of half empty. And, I try to look at what's real, but yet I don't want to be drugged down. So anyway, but these have helped me because recently, because of the multiple cancellations, I was even just discouraged. And so I found 3 things that are helping me, and I hope they will help you today. The first is to focus on what is going right. Okay, so that's that half full. Number 2, plan creative new ways to survive that are sustainable. And I'll cover a couple of those. And number 3, resolve to never give up emotionally, even if you have to give up part of your dreams. And the emotional word is very important there, because once we really give up emotionally, we have a really hard time regrouping after that. So number 1 is to focus on what is going right. So in handling disappointment with a government shutdown and news that was gloomier by the minute, I decided to turn off the daily news. And I know a lot of my colleagues and friends that I was talking to, they were doing the same thing because it was really hard. I wanted to face reality, but I didn't know it was real anymore. And I didn't want to roll around in the mud of negativity and fear that escalated with every new statistic that was blasted. And my husband, he's been on with me once a month, Greg. If you've listened to this before, you've gotten to know him. He's wonderful. But he comes from a world of numbers with finance, and he does stuff in his head that I will never do. But he said, you can make those numbers up. And what are you basing it on? And we don't know. We don't know what numbers and statistics, how they are coming up with their certain statistics. We don't know what to believe. And just realizing that there was a problem, but not wallowing around in it was very helpful with me, because I needed to focus on what was good and right. Getting outside helped, and taking our little dog, Amelia, on more walks. I don't know that she'll ever experience this many walks again. I've gotten to know some of my neighbors and smile at them, wave at them that I've not seen them, in years. And also, I've been listening to so many audiobooks and podcasts, and I try to listen to the ones that are just very positive and helpful, encouraging to me, listening to especially entrepreneurial stories and how people have come through those. And focusing on the survivors, the first responders who continue to show up. We have a son who is a fireman, a paramedic, and they have to face not only their own fears, but those that they're treating. And every single day, it doesn't matter whether we've faced a pandemic or anything else, they are still facing this every single day. And that's encouraging to me, that there are those local heroes that we can just really be encouraged by. Also, I loved hearing stories of creativeness, creative graduation and birthday celebrations, with people driving by and celebrating. Those were so fun to see those stories. And I don't spend a lot of time on social media, to be honest, but I would click in and I would see those pictures, and that was encouraging to me. Hearing about the shelter pets that were now finding new homes. And actually, the shelters, some of the shelters were completely empty. They don't have any pets to give away because so many people were adopting pets because they needed that sort of little care and the comfort. And they received so much from those little pets that now found a home, and it was a very positive thing all the way around. So there is still a time for news, but in small bites that don't overshadow a sense of hope. So that's a really important part for this first little focus on what's going right. And number 2, plan creatively. And I love this little phrase, with crisis comes creativity. Very, very true phrase. And sometimes we don't see how impactful that is until after we come out of something. But many companies were started during times of recession. And I love stories like this. This is why I listen to some of those inspiring podcasts. But when the tech entrepreneurs Joe Gebbia, I think that's how we say it, and Brian Chesky, they launched a simple online platform to rent out an air mattress in their high-rent apartment in San Francisco. They were barely making it. And out of that came Airbnb. Hey, how about that? Well, Reed Hastings was another one that was motivated to start an online DVD rental by mail, and he nearly went under. And he had offered it to the large chain, then known as Blockbuster, and they refused to buy it out during the dot-com bubble of the early 2000s. And Blockbuster did not do really well after that, and next Netflix came through. That was his little company, and pioneered the streaming on-demand service. And now, at this point of this episode, it's worth nearly $34 billion, and it's growing. So he took a little risk there, and it was during a time when he was struggling. There are many, many other examples in history, but how this applies to us is that now is the time to look around and see what is working, and then how can we creatively build on it, and even taking a small step of a risk. So they don't have to be big. So many fall into the trap of thinking they have to make these huge choices and huge changes. But it's the little steps and the moves that really, really count. When you can see what works with very little risk, then you're empowered to move forward with confidence. And there's that emotional hurdle there, because taking those risks and being willing to stretch a little bit does bring confidence step by step. So those were our first 2, and focus on what is going right, plan creatively. And it doesn't matter if you feel creative or not, or if you don't feel like you are creative. Everybody has a little something in them. And 3, never give up. And those famous words, they were uttered, from the lips of Winston Churchill. They never get old. Never, never, never give up. Well, there's a time to cut bait. I will admit this. There is a time to cut bait when needed, but most of the time there are ways to pivot and then move forward. And I love the story of Neil Armstrong. If Neil Armstrong gave up on his first flight in 1966 that almost ended up in disaster, we'd never have put a man on the moon in 1969. And there was that one step for man and a giant step for mankind. It was so impactful. In fact, this is going to date me a little bit, but I still remember watching that. I think it was on a black and white TV. Oh my goodness, you're going to know how old I am. But that was just unbelievable, thinking that somebody was landing on the moon. It was just a wonderful. But of course, usually this comes from the failures that came before, and then there is success. You have to be willing to get through those emotionally. Many actors that are now famous really know this principle well. Jim Carrey's early impersonations bombed, and anyone who has watched Jim Carrey before in The Mask or any of those movies, you're just thinking, oh, all of this natural talent, but it really gave him doubts about his capabilities as a professional entertainer, and I'm glad he didn't quit. Lady Gaga's music, it was labeled as disgusting from one of her record producer, or actually the label. But she knew the type of music that was coming in the future, and she was right. And she continues to reinvent herself, even singing with legends like Tony Bennett. And we can just see the versatility that she has, not only in her voice, but really in her personality. I loved this one. After his very first performance, Elvis's manager fired him and advised him to go back to driving a truck. That's great. But he never gave up, and we're glad he didn't. And how many movies did you see that Elvis was in growing up? I watched so many of those, and of course they're all sort of the same. But it was just classic that he had his little guitar and he was singing and playing, and it was just so much fun to watch him with his little moves. And did you know that he even had a gospel album out? My parents didn't let us listen to a lot of what was called pop music. Growing up, we listened to a lot of classical and Montevani strings, but we got to listen to Elvis Presley do his gospel music. And that was super, super fun. So I think we played it over and over and over and over again. And of course, the Beatles, they also faced a lot of problems. A recording label that passed on them, they said guitar music was on its way out. It wasn't going to be popular. And I think that record company is probably out of business today. But the Fabulous Four never gave up. They never gave up. And I'm glad they didn't. So as we think through these principles, I think they should be encouraging to all of us to apply no matter what we are going through right now, but to focus on what is going right. Always look at the reality of everything as well. So it's not, that we're looking at everything with peaches and cream and everything's just happy-go-lucky and that's what we're doing. We have to face reality, but also spend more of our time focusing on what is good and right and keeping our heart encouraged and full of hope. Because if we lose hope, we've lost so much and to keep moving forward. And we've lost the ability to encourage those around us. And that's one of my missions is I started my whole business like that. I think I was in junior high school when I started DJ Works, and it was all about sending encouraging cards. I would make these little encouraging cards for people, and I would put DJ Works on the back because at that point I was calling myself Debbie Jean. And now I'm Deborah Johnson. So it's the same DJ, and before DJs were even popular. But understand that you've got to have the right input and focusing on what's good to be able to have the right output. And then that plan creatively. And I am a creator anyway. I have creative juices coming out everywhere, just all these ideas. But not always do they pan out or do I even pursue them. But I think this comes for everyone to be able to understand that times of crisis are some of the best times of creative opportunity possible. And it's hard when you're in the middle of it to think about it like that, because it really is. I think sometimes we don't even realize until after everything's done and over that, oh, wow, those were some great opportune times that I could take advantage of. And this is how I've created multiple streams of income right now, which I really teach in some of my courses, how important that is. I've learned that big time in music. You have to have multiple streams of income. And once you do a song, it is always repurposed in a million different ways. And figuring out how to do our businesses that way, this is the creativity that comes from that. And then, of course, number 3 is just this: never give up. And that's an emotional decision to know where you're at and to not quit trying and not quit going about the process of moving forward. So, and now looking at maybe your next big challenge. What are you facing right now in handling the disappointment that seems endless with repeated setbacks, overnight changes, and a feeling you're no longer control? I mean, what decisions do you have to make? But as we look at this in handling disappointments, we have to realize, have we ever been fully in control? We don't fully have control. We do have freedoms in our country, which we are so, so thankful for because we can pursue opportunity. And those were fought for with real blood, perseverance, and sacrifice. I am a big proponent of capitalism and the ability to be able to create our businesses and to have them with the freedoms that were fought so hard for, and they were based on real solid principles that were really thought out. And so not forgetting those is very, very important. But we're never fully in control of every single area of our life. I mean, a little health crisis, we could get ill. We could fall and break a leg. We could, all sorts of things little things that happen. But we can have the freedom internally to keep going. And so that is the challenge, is to keep that inner fire going and to watch what comes in to keep that going. So there will be more trips, there will be more baseball games, and there will be more artists who are told they don't have the talent to break through. Guaranteed. Just watch any of the reality TV shows. So, but says who? Some of those people, I'm glad Elvis just decided, he's going to keep going. I'm glad Jim Carrey did the same thing. I'm glad the Beatles, of course, did. Oh, my goodness. And Lady Gaga, there's so many stories like this. If we start, looking at some of those people. So, but taking these 3 principles to heart has helped me personally in handling disappointment and multiple disappointments. I usually have a very positive outlook, as I mentioned, but knowing the voices to listen to and creatively using my time has been good because I have ended up putting up more online courses, digging deep into the technical aspects of those, which does take time, and it is not for the faint of heart. And so I've used that time to say, I've put those self-imposed deadlines and goals. I work, with the end in mind. I work backwards. So I set a date where I'm launching something, and then I got to get it ready. And a lot of times I even pre-sell. So that's very a good principle to go by when you are creating things and building things. And I've just resolved once again to never give up. And that's really important in moving forward, because I know you've got to understand how to make things work. And even in the trip that we have our plans changed, I was able to kind of reformat it a little bit differently and really look forward to it now, because the opportunity that is provided is a little bit different, but yet it's almost more exciting to me. So understanding that we can use what's happening to the very, very best of our abilities. Some people have made a little retreat out of their homes and made it more of a place that they can, really, really enjoy more times with people that they care about that they don't get to see as much. I heard a story of someone that decided to camp out in the backyard once a week and just make their own little place. I think that's so great. That's just being creative. So I hope this has really, really helped you in coming out the other side really, really positively. So, and next week is a really fun episode. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't, and you'll get all the information about that, and make sure it shows up on whatever platform that you listen to. But the subject is creating your own space when working side by side. Ooh, that's a good one, isn't it? And I don't know how much longer I think what we have been going through with the virus and with the pandemic, the effects of that are going to be kind of long lasting until we really come out of it. But I'm thinking a lot of people are now enjoying working remotely. So, but it's important. My husband and I have been working side by side for a number of years, but I have some fun stories here. So creating your own space when working side by side, and how you get through through that and figure out how to work. Don't forget that learnmusicagain.com, that cart is open, officially open. So to at least look at it, get some of the free downloads and see if this is for you. I'd love you to join me in that. It is so much fun. And so here I'm going to sign off. Deborah Johnson with goalsforyourlife.com, womenathalftime.com. You can go to either one of those, even DJ Works Music. I have a lot of websites, but you can get a hold of me easily and listen, subscribe, tell your friends all about this if you think they'd enjoy it, and leave me a review. So I'll see you next time, and bye for now. Thank you for joining us on Women at Halftime. Visit goalsforyourlife.com or womenathalftime.com for many more resources, downloads, and programs, or to get in touch with me. I'd love it if you leave me a review and tell your friends. So until next time, this is Deborah Johnson, signing off.